Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Sorry, rudely interrupted yesterday. Things happen. Right, where was I? Sort of just like walking back in 5 minutes later, but in fact it's a day later. Lousy day today. Really, really thick clouds, showers, wind. It's called England, UK. My RO unit's busy out there at the moment because I'm nearly out of water in my containers. And of course I'm using a lot less water now. And as we go into winter, that's going to get less and less. So I've got a large volume of water that's going to last a long time. That's my problem, that flipping bucket. It actually takes half a day for the RO unit to replace that water. Now it's not a big deal, you know, it can just be left unattended. That's an awful lot of water. But if I try and refill that out of my containers, there's over half of them gone. You know, I mean, I think I fill that up. It's about 20 litres, something like that, up to the level. That's low at the moment because I haven't been topping it up because I need to change it. That was why the discussion. But yeah, I mean, back in the summer, I was changing the Vander bucket water every time I got the RO unit out. And with the smaller bucket, that was no big deal. I think that held about, I don't know, about 10 litres, maybe 12, something like that. So it was quite easy to just replace the Vander water. Now it's not. And I'm sort of thinking, as we head into winter, that RO unit's only going to come out about every 3 weeks, maybe even 4 weeks. And I can't keep reusing that water that long. I mean, it's going to go stagnant. You know, it's actually got nutrients in it. So I'm going to have to work something out. It might just be that I have to get the RO unit out just for the Vander bucket. You know, it's not a big deal. It just, you set it up, turn it on and walk away. And then come back when it's full. Or flooded the garden if you forget. That's never happened, honest. Anyway, where I was yesterday was going through the mounts. And I did say I'm not going through every single mount. It was just a general sort of look around. Trouble is, I've got a job to remember where I got to. And I'm doing the Holey clay pots today. I did catch that yesterday and sort of talk about that. And I did say it will probably open later in the day. So Dendrobium harveyanum is at it again. This actually had quite a long break. I was beginning to get a bit worried about that plant, but as in the last video, it's okay. It's coming on. Now the long cane dendrobiums are all sort of up here in a mass. I'm not going to get them all down. They don't need watering today. You can see the colour of the moss. It's still wet from yesterday. And I mean, I'm already down to, instead of every day, it's now every other day. 3 consecutive dull days, and the ones with a fair bit of moss are still not dry after 2 days. So they're going to start going 3 days now, which is a bit of a nuisance because some of them with next to no moss or almost bare rooted are still going to have to be every other day. So I'm going to get things out of sync now. But it's not like I've got loads of other stuff to do. I just wanted to mention the pegged Vander. These 2 pegs have done their job. This spike has arched and the buds are starting to separate from the stem now, so I don't think it's going to change shape anymore. As soon as the buds start to swell, the weight of the buds will hold that spike. I mean, I don't know whether it's actually set yet. Oh, it is actually. So the pegs can come off now. They've done their job. See, the weight of the pegs was actually pulling the plant down on the hook. Well, I've already got the spike to arch now. I'll keep my eye on it because if it starts to spring back upright, the pegs will have to go back on. But it does look a trifle nicer without the pegs. But they've done their job. The other spike on the other Vander's pushing on nicely. That's the big blue one. I'm not sure that's going to have many blooms on it this time. That was a magnificent spike last time. Lasted well over 2 months. That was good stuff. And this is the second spike on this one. And this one, not one this year. Bloomed for the first time ever last year. And didn't this year. Reasons unknown, don't ask. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. My twinkle buds are starting to swell. But again, they're still twinkle buds. Don't hold your breath. It's still got a way to go. And then eventually I can find out what colour that is, because I mislaid all the tags, which is naughty of me. Dead leaf, how dare you. Damn cheek. But yeah, there's a cinnamon one. In fact, I think there's 2 cinnamon ones and hopefully the yellow one. I know I lost a twinkle, but I don't know which one I lost. I hope it's not the yellow one. But there are 3 lurking around somewhere besides the tiny twinkle, which I showed yesterday. So eventually I get the colour on this one. If it's the yellow one, then all the others are the cinnamon one, because I know I lost the red one. That was lost in the Ceramis project. So I know that one's gone. I remember throwing it away. But out of the 3 that are left, one I hope is the yellow one. Which one this is, we'll find out. Probably in about a month. Slow coaches. Ooh, no, that's the fan flaps. Right, so what I need to get on with now is... what I've done here is I just put a small amount of feed in the water before I started so that I could actually do my air plants. They're not getting forgotten anymore. I've even got them in my notes. Not as individuals, I've just got air plants watered and the date and whether they actually had any feed in the water. But all I do to feed these is when I start, it's obviously plain water, and I put a little bit in. I don't bother testing it and find out how much, I just know it's a little bit. That's all I need to know. And then those can get a dunk and be hung back up again. And then I can get on and do my Spanish moss, which is in there soaking at the moment. That's it's quite surprising actually how much water those bundles of Spanish moss actually take on board. I'm sure that's gone down about ½ an inch just watering the air plants, and then all I do with those is hang them back up, hopefully not falling on the floor as I do it. Oh, it's a two-handed job. I have to put the camera down a minute. Have a look at the world upside down while I'm busy. I wouldn't normally do that, but I know I'm only going to be a few seconds, then I'll pick the camera up again. Enjoy yourselves, you know, stand on your heads, do what you like. Right. Camera waving everywhere. Right, what I was actually going to do today is do the Holey clay pots. And I need to water. These in here are so easy to forget now, because they're not out here. So when I brought these plants in, all of the Paphiopedilums got watered, that I do know, and a slight glance says they're still wet. They don't need touching. But I don't remember whether I actually did the Phalaenopsis or not. I mean, things like the Psychopsis, they're in moss. I mean, I've only got to touch it with my finger and I know straight away whether it's, and they're both okay. But I don't think I did the Phalaenopsis, so I need to, and they're going to be a faff to do. You know, they'll have to be carried in there one at a time, and but you know, it's got to be done. I need to keep them warm, so that's where we are with those. There was a spike somewhere. Where was it? Oh yeah, it's all right. It's a distant memory yesterday. This is the dinosaur one, Brontosaurus, and this is destined to go to Rose. So hey Rose, you got a spike. It's just started, right down at the base there, in the dark. So I was chucking it down with rain again. So you got a spike, Rose. The onus is on me to pack that so that it doesn't get squashed, because it's not going in the Holey clay pot. It's got to come out of there and just go in a plastic pot. I can't spare the Holey clay pots. So, right, oh, listen to it again. It's about every half hour it has a funny 5 minutes, and then it blows over again, and then we've got a shed load coming in sort of overnight. And then hopefully nice again for the weekend, but they can be wrong. Anyway, I've got to get on with the Holey clay pots. That's definitely got to be done today. They're a day late. Should have been done yesterday. So, and I'll see what I find as I go along. As I take the plants down individually, there's either something to say about them or there isn't, and I've got them on the table at that point, so we'll see how we go. But before I carry on, I need a coffee. I'll be back. Okay, before anybody asks, having chatted to a lot of the growers at both of the orchid societies, it is deemed that they all work in microsiemens rather than TDS readings. I mean, you have to bear in mind a TDS reading is a very generalised reading, but it gives you a guide as to how strong your water is once you add your feed in there. And most of those agreed that your normal actively growing plants, your Oncidium Alliance, Cattleya Alliance, things like that, epidendrums, encyclias, or dendrobiums, all things that are in good active growth, they're feeding between 500 and 600 microsiemens, which on a conversion chart, which you can find easily enough on the internet, it comes out, you know, the lower end is a TDS of around 300 to 350, something like that. So that water at the moment has got a TDS reading of 350. For me, that's high. I wouldn't dream of going any higher than that, but now and again I do like to give quite a high dose. That will be followed by a low dose. Now luckily for me, when I add my feed into my water at that level, it automatically brings the pH down to a suitable reading. That's somewhere between 6.4 and 6.5 without touching it, so that's good. Well, next time when I give it a lower level feed, because it'll be a high level feed followed by a lower level feed, and this time of year followed by a flush. That's what I'm doing with the pots at the moment. Actually, that's probably what I'm doing with most of the mounts as well. It's pretty general at this time of year. But next time, if I use a much lower level feed, the pH will be up round 6.8, which I don't want, so I will artificially lower it. And because the pH this time is about 6.4, 6.5, I'm quite happy to lower it down to sort of 5.9, maybe 6, and get it at the sort of lower end. I'm not going any lower than that, because personally I see no point. Okay, so that's what I'm using. What am I using it on? This is my tray on the floor, my Ivanagara apple blossom, which is probably out of my healthy plants the one that looks the worst. And it looks the worst because it just got too much light and it burnt the two leaves nearest the glass, so they got a little singed. That's the oldest pseudo bulb. Those will be the first leaves to drop, and then what they leave behind won't look too bad. Latest growth on this is pushing on nicely. It's just opening its second leaf. It's probably going to produce a sheath and eventually blooms. I see no reason why it shouldn't. It's got a very good root system in there. This is quite funny. You've heard me say this before. If these large fleshy type roots with thick velamen actually crack, that doesn't mean the root's dead. Yeah? This root was just coming over the edge of the pot, and I tried to bend it back round in the pot, and it cracked. Yeah? Look how much it's grown since then. It's gone right over the edge of the pot and down into the pot. It's not dead just because it's broken. Yeah? The little filament inside is still okay. It's still growing. There's one root there decided to come out over the edge of the pot and head down the edge of the pot, and then decided it didn't like it and went back in the first hole it came to. Now some people worry about things like that root there. That's come out of the pot and the growing tips just died. That root's not good. With that many roots, do I care? Do I hell? If it only had 3 roots and that was one of them, I'd be worried. But when it's got a root system like that, the odd root that dies back, probably just air too dry or something, whatever, I'm not even worried about it. It's just one out of many. But this one's coming on. It did look in a real sorry state, you know, when those leaves first got singed and there was, you know, no sign of a new growth. But with the new growth coming on, nice good leaves and a good root system now. It didn't have that before either. It has now. So that's that one. Blooms on that are going to be quite a way away. The bulb's not mature yet. It hasn't even fully opened its second leaf. It's a bifoliate. And then it's got to form its sheath and progress from there if it chooses to do so. So blooms on this, I would say, are going to be next year. They're not going to be this year. If at all, might need another new growth. You never know. Now this one is Laelia anceps, and although an awful lot, well, some Laelias were pushed across to Cattleya classifications. Some of them were moved into totally different ones with new names. So the Laelia classification has been played with, but I think Laelia anceps, as far as I know, has stayed exactly where it was. It is a Laelia. It still is, I believe. I don't mind being proven wrong. Do you think I'm going to change the tag? Yeah. There you go. This one's come on well since it came off its mount, and it's a strange way of progressing. So you can see possibly why it's a Cattleya. A Laelia and not a Cattleya. First of all, here's the giveaway. Cattleyas don't do long spikes. Yeah? So that's a difference straight away. There is a difference in the shape in the lip. But this one pushed up 2 new growths, and when the growths were probably about half size, the spikes started. Now I don't remember whether it did that last time because it's a while ago, but the bulbs are still growing. These are getting bigger all the time and maturing while the spikes are extending. So yeah, good stuff. I suspect these spikes are going to be at least 2 foot long and maybe even 3. They do get pretty long, and hopefully a couple of buds on each one would be nice. But yeah, that's coming on quite nicely now. 2 good strong new growths, both with spikes. Can't ask for any more than that. On what is a very small plant, really. This was a division off a specimen plant. So it's one of those that could be cheated on and actually said, oh, it's flowering size. Well, when you chop a bit off a specimen size plant, the bit you chop off is not necessarily flowering size. It's a little bit of a cheat. But this came from somebody I know, and reliable, so you know, I'm fine with it. I knew where it had come from, I knew the size of it, and I was prepared to wait for the next growth to see if it bloomed. It did, and now it's going to bloom on both of those, unless anything dramatic goes wrong, which I can't imagine. Now, as Cattleya types go, this is a good plant. If you see one like this, go and get it. This came from Chantel before she sort of moved to Australia, so I just wanted a memory of her. This I got at the RHS show 2 Februaries ago, so I've had it about 1.5 years now. When I got it, 6 canes had buds showing in sheaths. Yeah? That's quite something. That was nearly all of the growths on it at the time were showing buds in sheaths. So I thought this is going to be quite a spectacle. And she had one in bloom there, so I knew what I was getting. I knew what it would be, you know. They all bloomed. It was a spectacle and a half, an absolute spectacle. But it was badly compacted in moss. Had a very poor root system, probably an import from Thailand, which is where a lot of her stuff came from. But once those blooms were over and I could see some signs of new growths pushing with little root buds, I thought, well, it needs to come out. So I took it out, put it in the Holey clay pot, and boom, it's gone mad. Which is what I was expecting, but you can't rely on these things. Now, I only pushed up 2 new growths, but, you know, given from the back of the plant, given what the old growths look like, the 2 new growths are pretty stunning. They're much bigger and fatter, much sturdier. Both have sheaths. I expect them both to bloom. When? I don't know. This is a strange, it's actually a BLC, Young Min Orange, if I didn't say. But it has a double sheath, so it pushes up its sheath, and then you can see the shadow of the second sheath. That's not buds, that's a second sheath, and it will come up about probably about 1 centimetre or 2, and then it will stop. Then the buds form, then they push through. So slightly different, you know, way of producing the buds. There are many ways, that's one of them. A little unusual to get a secondary sheath inside, but again, it's a bifoliate. This oldest leaf's going to go soon on one of the tiny ones from when it was a seedling. So this plant's been probably grown on, you know, from a seedling rather than, and it must have been grown flipping well. If these are the seedling bulbs, and if you look at how many old bulbs it's got, and 6 of those bloomed, that's virtually every one. That must have been grown incredibly well. Either that or it's just a really vigorous floriferous type. Maybe. Anyway, I've got 2 new growths, both of which I expect to bloom down the line somewhere. We shall see. But it's a good plant. You know, it's got good leaves. There's hardly any marks on any of the leaves. And the 2 latest growths are smashing. You know, nice big fat ones. In the not too distant future, those sheaths will come off. But I'm leaving them at the moment. They're not doing any harm at the moment. You know me and sheaths. Every time I see one, I always ask, because I've had experience with scale, is there anything lurking under those sheaths that I can't see, breeding and biting into the base of the bulbs? So there is a good reason for getting rid of sheaths. It's not just for aesthetics. But if you look how shiny and green this bulb is, you know, without that sheath, it's going to look pretty good. You know, it's very attractive. I'll get round to it eventually, but this one's still wet. I always think the sheaths are better taken off as they start to dry and turn brown. They're there for a reason. They protect the stems. They help against burning sun, should it get some. Yeah? So they're there for a reason. They stop bitey things coming in from the outside, because they get quite hard and woody. So they are there for a reason, but in a sheltered little environment like mine, they're not needed like they might be out in the wild. So even though this has never seen the wild, it's a hybrid. But that's a good plant. I'm well pleased with that plant. I intend just growing this on bigger and bigger and bigger. And chances are it's staying in that pot at least 3 years, maybe 4. It will outgrow that pot probably next year. I don't care. If bulbs start hanging over the side and attaching to the pot, I like that look, so I'm quite happy for it to do that. Doesn't suddenly need a bucket to live in. Wouldn't suddenly get an extra 3 branches where it had got a hold on a tree, would it? You know, oh, I'm getting bigger now. Come on, Mr. Tree, I need an extra branch to grow along. It'll take what it gets, and it'll just attach. So, good one. Now, this is a biggie. I swore I'd never get any giants again, because they're always top heavy, but because of the clay pots, they don't fall over. They do okay, but you know, these are large leaves, very large leaves. Now this came from Equigenera, who I always have suspicions. I know people have got ones infected with Fusarium, lousy root systems, you know, ones that have keeled over within 2 or 3 weeks of taking them home, and you know, I've heard bad stories, but you can pick up good plants from them, and they've got stuff that nobody else has got, so you take your chance. But this has been on my I want list for a long time, Laelia purpurata, and it's the variation you read it. There's too many purrs in there, far too many. But I've been after this one for quite a while. So I mean, I got this at Malvern this year actually. So given that I got this in June, let's have a think about its progress. I think John got one of these as well from. Oh, brain's gone. I'll get it in a minute. The guy from Spain, you know who I mean. No, it's gone. Sorry, John. It'll come in a minute. I've got other things on my mind as well as filming. But given that I only got this in June, that would have been Malvern. It had 2 tiny new growths on it and some signs that some roots might grow. So I took a bit of a risk, but I thought, yeah, if it's going to grow, if it's got signs of new roots against new growths, there is a good chance it will take off. And it has. If you look at the latest 2 new growths, that's not bad going. Yeah. Now this one is a little bit of a nuisance because the leaf is so heavy on it, it looks like it might bend. And if it bends, it'll. Let's just turn it round, give you so you can see what I'm getting at. If that doesn't straighten itself up, it's going to inhibit the formation of a sheath, possibly. So I might have to stake that until it sets, because it's still quite floppy. You know, these are new growths. They haven't set yet. That's the expression I use, you know, when they become firm and hard and, you know, the leaves are all stiff and leathery. These aren't yet. These are still softer. These are still new growths coming on. So I might just have to stake that one and keep it straight rather than let it bend and then set. So yeah, coming on well. There's no reason why one or both of these shouldn't actually produce blooms, which will be wonderful if I get it to bloom on its first growths that I've produced. But it's done a good root system from those new growths, all heading down all through the pot, out of the pot, in it, round it, which is what they do in these pots. So coming on well, that one, I'm pleased. Okay, before I put this Laelia back, I'll just show you. All I've done is just put a very, very loose tie round this leaf, which is firm and set, round this one that was starting to bend. So it's now straightened it without holding it tight and still allowing the light to get at the leaf. But now as this pseudo bulb matures, the leaf should stay upright. And then once it gets into its set position and starts turning all leathery and stiff, it should stay put. So that should improve the look and the chances of any sheath that may form having room to grow. So that's what I've done with that one. It's a very, very loose tie. It's only just on there. It's not to, all it is to hold this upright and take that bend out of it. That's all it's for. Now, this is one of my recent acquisitions. So recent it hasn't got a tag, because I threw away the floppy old rubbish tag that was in it on the plans that I would then write out a nice new tag. And unfortunately, my lovely permanent marker Sharpie pen has run out of ink. Grr. So I can't do any labels. But Saturday I've got the Wessex Orchid show that I'll be going along to, and I know Peter White will be there, and he sells the proper Sharpie pens, ultra fine black permanent markers. They're absolutely brilliant, so I'll get a couple while I'm there. I could have got them back at the Bournemouth show that I was at, because there was a pot full of them there and I got distracted by that Restrepia. Just forgot to get a pen. So anyway, no new tags at the moment till I get a proper pen to do it with. This is a nice mini cat, and as I said, I'll put a pop-up because I do know which one it is. It just hasn't got a tag on it, so I'm not going to recall the name immediately. This had one quite small new growth on it that I was worried about. Because it was bent, I potted it high. Yeah? Well, it's heading upwards now, and I thought it had been broken. Well, it hasn't. That's nice and sturdy. So it's pushed strength into that, and the floppiness has now gone. That will eventually produce roots. Not yet. Sometime. When I get a new Cattleya, I always wonder at what point in its growth cycle the new roots will come, because they can be quite different. And this one doesn't look like the new growth's going to produce roots until it's mature, because there's no sign of any yet. But look where they'll come out, straight down into the pot. Wonderful. Anyway, it's growing on, and it's got a good root system down in the pot, so even though there's a few tatty ones sticking out the top, yeah, it doesn't matter. There's more than enough good roots on the plant. That is a lovely little mini cat. Nice little bifoliate. Nice neat leaves. Tidy plant. And in theory, that new growth could bloom. That would be nice. If not, it certainly will on the next one. And I'd like to see some more new growths pushing out from other parts of the stem. Yeah, it looks like it could do. Looks like there's an eye there that might push out. That would be good. Get two up this end. Anyway, it's one of these wait and sees, but it's a lovely little plant. Really pleased with that. Right, this is the last one of the new purchases, and actually it's the last one for today. This is another Cattleya. This is Xin Fong Little Sun Young Min Golden Boy. You sure that's long enough, Butch? This didn't have very good roots, trifle worrying, but the latest two growths have both got sheaths, and I've got a feeling one of them might actually bloom. Whether both will or none will is yet to be decided, but these are the two latest maturing growths with sheaths. One with one leaf, one with two leaves. Bulb with two leaves, bulb with one leaf. So another one of those just cannot make its mind up. But on these two latest maturing growths, we have good root signs. It's starting to push a good root system out from these two growths that are good, because it wasn't the best of root systems. But in addition to that, we got another new growth coming. Yep, and a potential for an eye to grow there too, possibly. We shall see. If it had an excellent root system, I'd expect that one to go, but you know, let's get the roots sorted out first, worry about other things later. So whether either of these two will bloom or not, we'll have to wait and see. And then it's got another nice new growth coming on. Not sure whether that was there when I got it or whether that's new. I have to go back and look at the video. Anyway, got a flat knee now where I've been knelt on it all morning. It's lunchtime now, so I'm going to finish in here for today. I haven't got anything else to water in here. I've done all the Holey clay pots, but what I will have to do is come back in this afternoon and look at the phalaenopsis that are indoors. As I said, I don't remember whether I watered them when I put them indoors, and if I didn't, they haven't been done for some time. But a few days of dry for a phalaenopsis will not do it any harm at all, as opposed to staying soggy wet, which will do it serious damage. You'll rot your roots. They do like to dry. So yeah, I'll leave it at that for today. Thanks for watching. As I say, the Holey clay pots are all making progress of some sort. As I say, it's a sea of cattleya leaves up on that shelf, and at the moment that's where they're staying, because at the moment that is the brightest light. But as soon as I start playing with taking shade netting off, it might not be. Yeah, because most of that bright light's coming in from the roof at the moment. That won't change now, the shade netting's off, but the amount that comes in from the sides could change. So I may change the shelf. I haven't decided yet. So we just have a last look at show off over here. Yeah, it's been a bit shy for a while, but it's getting back into the swing of things. I think there's another spike lurking in there somewhere. So coming on, those are nice blooms, aren't they? It's supposed to be scented, but I've never noticed any fragrance on it. Yeah, anyway, that'll do for today, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.